I'm glad that this Kyiv Security Forum for the Young People, called Generation W Squared, is continuing, and we have discussed so far a lot of various topics. But now we will try and put together an idea of what is ahead of us, given all of the previously shared insights and knowledge. I would start with Tymofii Brik, if I may. Tymofii Brik is the rector of Kyiv School of Economics, and he is the youngest rector. Yeah. Now, I'm the second youngest. Kseniia was the youngest when she was elected president. Quite recently, Kyiv Security Forum visited with the Kyiv School of Economics, and I was greatly impressed with the School of Economics itself and the questions asked by the students. Sometimes we fail to give as good answers as good questions were asked, but all of those questions were very professional and very profound, I would say. It was the time when the so-called Mindich corruption scandal just erupted, and the students asked the panelists about the role of Tymofii Milovanov, for example, and his contribution to the supervisory board of Artem. And your students were also active participants of the revolution on cartoons, the Maidan close to the Ivan Franko theater, which testifies to the values shared by your students and the faculty. On the other hand, we observe a different reality. And we have, this is an example of young people who are committed and who contribute to the democratic development of Ukraine. On the other hand, there are hundreds, perhaps thousands of young people who've left Ukraine. We do not criticize anyone, but it is just a different edge of the spectrum of various attitudes by the young people. So you, working with the young people, how do you perceive them? What's the specificity of this generation, Generation W Squared? I know that the profile of our student has changed. Before the all-out war started, about half of our graduates dreamt of going to other universities in other countries to do their PhD programs, for example. But the situation is opposite now. Most of them, young men and young women, state that they would remain in Ukraine. They will stay in Ukraine, and nobody doesn't seem to be interested in getting a PhD degree in Berkeley. They say, we want to stay here, we want to be of use. And now the program for engineers is now one of the most popular. We do not specialize in engineering. We do not have a brand related to our School of Economics. But now that's what the young people need, and that's their demand. And young people keep us accountable, I would say. It's sometimes scary to work with them. They are demanding, they've got very noble values, they are good English speakers, but at the same time, they're young people who still lack experience, life experience included. So you characterize our students in a very positive light, and that pleases me a lot, and this makes me proud. But one interesting fact: there was an election, the university, and there was an electoral campaign for self-governing bodies for the students at the Kyiv School of Economy. But what happened was just a usual Ukrainian story. They argued and they all broke the relationships, etc. So it looked as a typical Ukrainian pre-election situation. These are talents with huge potential, but they have to learn how to channel this potential in the right direction. They should muster their soft skills and hard skills. It's not enough to have noble values. You have to also know what procedures are about, what institutions are about, and you have to know what discipline is about. We have with us young people who are tracing successful models. Your school is a successful model. It is a state, a country within a country of sorts, and you are looking for ways to retain students. And a lot of people in this audience keep thinking how to stay in Ukraine, be useful, and survive. So what does the government have to do to retain these people in Ukraine, not only for their patriotism, but also for their very conscious choice for them to look for and find self-accomplishment here? My answer might be cynical to a certain degree, and universities would not discuss it publicly. Universities are oftentimes a filter, a sift that is selecting talent. In English, it's called sorting, talent sorting. We work with the young people who are willing to stay in Ukraine, who are willing to study. So we select from amongst those who are patriotic and who are motivated to stay in this country. So it doesn't take much of us to persuade them to stay and be useful. We do not look for people who are ready to work with us. They are willing to work with us. And then we offer them opportunities. Wherever they see opportunities, they are ready to capture them, to seize the day, then to do good, to grow in their profession, to build very successful careers, but they need to have this promise of opportunity. Do you believe that Ukrainian young people who have left will return? I trust sociological opinion polls, and according to them, young adults who have left are willing to come back. At least 30% of those do want to do so. Our next speaker would be Kateryna Mykhalko, a bright representative of her generation. And Kateryna,
she's the director of the Technological Forces of Ukraine company. They have 6 companies, and at the moment there are 80 companies, and they are all actual producers. So, Kateryna, I think the audience would be very much interested in hearing your take on this. What is your secret of success and the implementation of this complicated mission that you've chosen for yourself? Well, I think there are things which help me enjoy what I am doing, and in this audience there are people who would like to have a meaningful and interesting career. And before the full-scale aggression, I thought that there are global markets like the US, Great Britain, the EU, the steady and stable countries in which there are more opportunities for growth. You go there and your salary is much better. There are institutions where you can get education and so on. But as a matter of fact, all this is about a totally different system in which you have a clear-cut hierarchy with a lot of limitations. I think a great advantage of Ukraine, even if we put aside things like patriotism and responsibility for the future of the country, but in Ukraine there's a lot of rational reasons why one should stay in Ukraine, because you can shape a new system, because the system largely is not in place, and this is something which inspires you, and inspires you to create your own place in this system. We work with weapons producers. Some of our companies produce drones. We have up to 100 companies now, and they are the main suppliers of the armed forces of Ukraine. I mean the suppliers of automated equipment. About 30 million drones per year. It looks like a kind of a closed system of production. And I understand that probably I don't look typical for this kind of field. It might look like I shouldn't be there. And no matter what conference I attend, all the attendants, male, some 55 years old, in the same suits, and any person from Ukraine stands out from the crowd. But our reality is such that we have to undertake responsibility from very early age, the responsibility which people in the West undertake when they are much older. But this gives you an advantage, because on global markets you can enter the rooms where you would not be able to enter if it had a different system. So there are a lot of additional opportunities for young people in Ukraine, and this is one of the secrets of the actualization of my talents. The reason being that I've never been afraid of the unknown. I shaped my own team, and I gathered people around our idea of defending Ukraine. In many other countries, it would have been much more difficult to do that. Well, Ukraine lives in a very challenging environment. There are a lot of post-Soviet hangovers and red tape, bureaucratic, and all those things definitely make an impact on your sector as well. But you managed to overcome, and we know that Mykhailo Fedorov is being considered for the position of the head of presidential administration. What's your take on this idea? I think Mykhailo has done a lot for drone production, and I respect him very much. In politics, I very much respect the people who can take unpopular decisions. Like he took a decision for people who produce drones to make more money. It was an unpopular decision, but the industry is very much grateful to that, to him for that. We understand that in your sphere, a lot of problems have piled up. And this is a question of survival, whether we will be able to make it or not, because defense technology is really key. And if we have a good defense industries, this is part of our security guarantee. If there were people from the government, like the presidential administration and the Ministry of Defense, if their representatives were here, what would you tell them by way of saying what they should do to make sure that this really becomes a true security guarantee? Before 2022, our industry was quite Soviet in nature. We produced tanks and armored vehicles, but this is a classical field. A lot of countries produce armored vehicles and so on, but Russia is a very serious enemy, and they can afford send hundreds of thousands of people to the meat grinder. But we are people-centered, and we're totally different from Russia in that respect. That's why we have to do everything possible so that we could lose robots instead of people. So we did this technological breakthrough, and now we have experience and expertise, which very few countries, maybe no other country in the world have. And this is a chance for us to change the geopolitical position of Ukraine, because being an international exporter of weapons and high-tech products, this is really a top position. Only the US, Great Britain, and some other major countries like Russia and China are active on those markets. So Ukraine can have this lever of influence and provide defense products to other countries. It's very important to integrate our sector in the Western world so that our company would be able to launch joint ventures. And that could be the first industry which would be integrated in the EU before Ukraine as a state does so. For us to make it happen, there should be the stabilization of the front line, or the ultimate end to the war. But our industry is very much needed for our partners. This is the first time when we can add value for our partners. We normally just begged for money from them, and we looked like victims. But we're not a victim. We are rebuffing one of the major military forces in the world, and we defend world values from them. So we need to use this window of opportunities and to take our industry to to the UK, Great Britain, the United States. For that, we should lift all the limitations imposed on our industry. Therefore, there should be cleansing of our society of all the problems which have been around for many decades, including the problem of corruption. My next question is to Artem Sytnyk. First of all, Artem, I congratulate you on the success of the constitutional reform and institutional reform. What we see now should be perceived as Ukraine's strong point rather than a weakness. While at the Kyiv Security Forum, it would be natural to bring up the following question. There's one nuance about this system. Will our system of public administration survive this fight against corruption? You mean the state bodies of power? Well, most state bodies of power have lost their agency over the last few years. And this is a huge problem when we hear that 5 managers run the country instead of the institutions that were designed to do so. When I became the director of NABU, I could not imagine that in a number of years we would go through attacks against anti-corruption bodies. And these attacks even became more cynical, because normally they were trying to make believe that this is lawful. But now we see that sometimes they brazenly do this to put pressure on anti-corruption bodies. Recently, I spoke at one conference, and they discussed the issue of an attack on the NABU and anti-corruption prosecutor's office. I said that the survival of the country depends on the outcome of this process. We had a dilemma in the past whether we have to be public about issues like corruption, even though we are fighting now against the formidable enemy, we should be open about this. In 2022, people normally said that we have to prevail in the war and then we'll sort out the corruption issue. I've always said that without combating corruption, we will never be victorious in this war, because this is about providing enough weapons and munitions to the front line. The latest surveys that I saw, that some 80% of respondents say that we have to focus on this issue even during the war. On the one hand, I thought that once we established anti-corruption bodies, we would be public about that, but the war somehow led to the fold-up of some democratic processes. And we saw that there was a lot of debate whether we have to postpone the reform until the end of the war. When we formed NABU, it was a kind of a young body with young people. The average age of workers in NABU was 25 years. I once had a debate with one of my deputies who came from Georgia, and he said that we should hire students. I was against it because I thought that these people should have a certain life experience if they want to take ministerial posts, because it's very important not just to put corrupt people behind the bars, but it's equally important to do it purely within the framework of the law. Otherwise, it'll be no different from the repressions which we are witnessing now against certain NABU personnel. And people who came to this body in 2015 are still there, and they impart their experience to their younger colleagues. I agree with Kateryna. When you go abroad, their procedures are more stable because they want to protect their system, which is already shaped, whereas in our country the system is not yet finally shaped, and we have social lifts which can bring the young people up to the positions where they can fulfill themselves and build a new system which we then would be defending from red tape and excessive bureaucracy. Well, Tymofii Brik today said that we should make an individual choice whether to stay or not to stay in Ukraine, to find a place for yourself in Ukraine. Kateryna Mykhalko is a success story in this model, an example of professional understanding of this sector. The cleansing of this sphere is what Artem Sytnyk did as the first head of NABU, and this body was established when, after the Revolution of Dignity, the government of Ukraine implemented the main concept of the reform of justice. And now we come to the external factor. Maryna Hrytsenko represents the Institute of Snake Island here. And we know a lot about the Snake Island, where our soldiers told the Russians what they're supposed to do. But the Snake Island in translation also means, another name of it is Achilles Island. And this organization maintains that they know how to work with the outside world, including with the Americans.
We are trying to find out, and I think that the results will speak for us. The aim of the organization is to build another entry to Ukraine, which would be systemic. Organization emerged a year ago. Our major audience are Americans, and I always say that our organization was inspired by Trump. They say, oh, excellent, because the major audience are Republicans. I myself lived 5 years in the US, then I came back to Ukraine because I see my values here. When Trump came, we realized that we needed to create new channels of communications. And we started communicating with Republicans and Democrats. We saw two platforms on which organization was set up. We saw that there is a big demand on communication with young people, Ukrainians who are westernized. And the second is a big demand on systemic presentation of military. And the third is the systemic approach. Very often, in the eyes of Americans, we look chaotic. We're a country of quick decisions, and it's clear it's got to think about strategic narratives and priorities of national security in the context of 15 years if you have a war in your country. But for our partners to see us as a partners, they must understand that we have a systemic approach. And why Snake Island? Because it's a middle ground between trading routes coming from Ukraine, and our export routes connect our economy with the world. And we decided to become a connection between our defense forces and our military for them to sound in a systemic way to international arena, and they're supported and esteemed by Americans and Western audience in general. We work with many units, and our organization in half consists of veterans. The team consists in half of veterans, another half are young, well-educated girls who were educated in the West, and we allow young people to come back here and to work properly. We've heard news that the strategy of national security of the US has been changed, and they deleted the mentioning of Russian aggression. The war of Russia against Ukraine is called Ukrainian war. European partners should bear a major part of responsibility for what's going on. Frankly speaking, we see absolutely cynical approach. How will you work systematically with this cynical approach? Russia is much stronger than me in a systematic approach. At any level, a couple of years ago, most of a major part of our advocacy was like this. We come, we make photographs, which raise ratings for us here in Ukraine, because we post this in the Facebook in America. But for us to become partners, we have to.
Ми подивилися, яким чином основні партнери США поза НАТО, тобто ми подивилися на Тайвань, на Корею, на Саудівську Аравію і на Ізраїль, яким чином вони зав'язали країну на собі так, що не...
How Israel connected the country in such a way that in spite of many issues, they still have this connection. This is because of permanent institutional presence there. It's building of routes and channels which would not be political. This is contacts with military, with defense companies, economic. It's very hard for me to work in the context of every declaration of Trump. We need to build our presence. First of all, because of analytical work which we do together with military, our information about our military achievements, their priorities, our priorities. For instance, the topic of Black Sea is very interesting for them because it may come to the issue of China and Pacific. China components. This week there were two activities on the topic of parts. America is very much interested when Ukraine comes and says, we see how your reliance on Chinese parts exists. Let's work together on solving this problem. Another very important thing is horizontal cooperation with their military. This year The Pentagon sent the task to majority of military units to understand how to realize how to integrate drones in their work. And they ask about it, and we see a good opportunity in this because we work with units here. How do they do it in America? For instance, Marine Corps, they have a small element system center where they understand what drones are. They come to us, we teach them, our military teach them something. We get certain assistance from that in response in their.
Що Україна є важливою. Кожна ланка передається в Пентагон наразі. І таким чином, якщо там 9 основних, там, наприклад, підрозділів Сполучених Штатів військових буде писати у всіх своїх дослідженнях спокійно, не політично, щомісяця, щороку, що Україна є важливою.
They would, in a systemic way, inform and understand that systematically they receive assistance and information from Ukraine. And then they would have a foundation of champions for us. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine, is it interested in your activities? Yeah, we're in a contact with the Foreign Ministry and with our embassy, but we are a private, non-profit organization. What is important for us? And there is a request in America for other channels of communication from Ukraine, and we are trying to represent army there. Thank you very much. Now I'm getting to the talk with Kseniia Semenova, who is a real star. In 2025, she was included into the list of leaders, strength of women, by Ukrainska Pravda, and also included into a list of 100 best people from NV. So your mission now is to make a conclusion on what we have heard today. Technologies and youth. As a president of a very well-known university, Kyiv Aviation University, how do you see this dimension of technological breakthrough with participation of youth, and what problems do you see in preparing young people to participation in this area of life? Thank you. As I said, well-known university, I will have a brief explanation. The role of youth is so high that the state have always realized the role of youth. That's why political universities have always been political instruments. Aviation University, its team community who created Aviation University, emerged in 1919 when the Association of Flyers emerged in Kyiv, and then Odessa entrepreneurs procured license in France, building aircraft in Odessa, in Kyiv, well-known aircraft designers emerged, and in Ukraine, at the same time as in Europe, they started building airplanes, share their ideas and views and visions. Later on, in the Soviet times, the youth and universities became the source of new ideas, including national ideas. That's why Aviation University was changed into service, not into the design. And you understand, there were people who said that we have to train not engineers, but those who use, the users of planes. So the same companies develop arms, train how to use these arms, service arms. So that's the full cycle. And in the Soviet Union, the idea was not to have the full cycle of anything. That's why there were universities separated between each other. And in Kyiv, they trained only the users, and the designers were brought to Russia. And we are still overcoming those ideas, those points. And when we work with professors who are very competent from scientific point of view, and their scientific school, which they have to share, those but we turned into a defense tech university, and we work with defense companies a lot, and we position ourselves this way. We get a lot of comments in the network, and our team believes, and students also join us, that the only normal role for technical university in the country, which in a situation of full-fledged war, is participation in defense production, development, and we are building a new, nice technical university, because there are no high-level technical universities in Ukraine. This is a bad news which I have. If we look at the laboratories which they have in the average Polish university, it is much better than in the best Ukrainian universities. But if we speak about personnel, political will, motivation to work and to create, nobody could compare with Ukraine. This is because we are objectively in such a situation. Very good. We have a possibility to ask 2 questions from the audience. Please, you may ask your questions. Ask brief and concrete questions. My name is Artem. I would like to get deeper into the topic of Ukrainian youth in Ukraine and abroad, because I now am working on the state project aimed at bringing back as many as possible young Ukrainians to Ukraine. And Tymofii said that 25 to 30% say that they would be able to come back. The question is, do we believe that this percentage can substantially be increased? And the second question, what concrete steps should be taken by the state for this to become a reality in a short and medium-term perspective? Briefly speaking, the whole international experience of migration shows that the longer a person is in a status of migrant or refugee, the less is the possibility or probability that this person will come back. People get new contacts, socializing, children go to the preschool, school. It becomes more and more difficult to come back. Speaking about youth, young people may open new career paths over there. I don't think we'll be able to increase these figures. We have to fight and to struggle for keeping these figures. But this is a normal figure. I'm not going to dramatize what should be done. I would express my personal opinion. I don't like when we say immediately, what should the state do? I spoke about society and markets. I think it's about business, it's about jobs, it's about opportunity to establish your own business or to join business. I think that a big role will belong to local communities, and from the point of view of the regulator, this definitely would be a question of housing and business climate.
If I could add very briefly, I studied in the USA, a very prestigious university, totally with the stipend, and people who studied in the universities of the Ivy League, they would not come back to their countries. And I believe that it is an illusion that you can achieve much more and much faster abroad. Now I'm 24 and I'm the leader of the organization, CEO of the organization. I would have never achieved that in the USA. All of my professors say that I should not get back to the USA because with my skills I would still be an assistant rather than a CEO. And sometimes I support people who wish to come back. I'm looking for good opportunities for employment here. But when people realize that you can achieve a lot of things, wonderful, very interesting, very high value things that will bring you good income in Ukraine in the early age, then it is attractive. So then I was doing my bachelor's program in New York, and I returned to Ukraine every summer for the internship, and that's exactly what helped me retain my contact. And when I graduated from the university, I knew where I want to be. Now I have got a program not related to security advocacy. It was the internship program. A guy from the University of Alabama said that he would like to come to Ukraine and spend summer there, and he would then seize his career as working in the intelligence sector. And now we are recruiting a new team for the January internship program. I have 19 people in my team, and then I will more trainees or actually interns than the team. We don't have this capacity, but still I would risk to do that. And 2 people from that team say that they would stay longer in Ukraine. So we have to stimulate this culture, showing people how Ukraine is developing and attract them thus. One more question from the audience. That would be the very last one, okay? Thank you very much for this opportunity. My first question was asked by the colleagues there. My second question is linked to it. Artem said that public authorities here from time to time lose their agency, become dependent on the groups of influence. How can we put in place a whole system of checks and balances? I watched the very recent session of Parliament where they voted for the budget, and after this vote there were several more issues to consider, but the MPs kept asking the Speaker whether they were going to discuss some of those issues or whether they would be voting with no discussion. That seems strange because the Parliament is a place where people parle, that's speak, discuss. So how can we change this culture in this society? The absence of checks and balances is sometimes an element of speedy decision-making, but then this decision-making system can sour because of the lack of checks and balances. So, and with the whole entire democratic world is based on the framework of checks and balances. Now the Parliament feels freer, much freer after the publication of those tapes and after the scandal. But before that, the members of Parliament did not have this practice, this custom of discussing things, because they knew that decisions would be actually given to them as ready-made things. And if one political force is entitled to form the government, then the government would not consider cases and will listen to the presidential office. I remember how it was when Arseny was prime minister. Various political forces came up with their ideas, then the government had to discuss it, they had to look for compromise, and that was beneficial to all. That's the way of introducing checks and balances. And now we see that mono majority is detrimental to democracy. And I hope that a true coalition will be set up, and then they will appoint a truly coalitional government. Thank you very much. That would be the end of this panel. But I would ask all of the panelists to give a very short answer to my question, and it sounds like this. We are all of us are looking for the source of optimism, for hope and strength. What's your expectations of the upcoming year? This will be a great year, particularly if everyone who is present here will do their best to contribute to our joint cause, for us to survive as a nation. It will be a hard year of hard work and satisfaction from the results. You won't be bored. That I can promise you. Yeah, that's a tough one. I don't know how to answer it. I am an optimist, and in the darkest times, I think about good things. And I think that we are about to enter a period with the new definition of this future. Will there be a ceasefire? Will there be a truce? Will it be beneficial to Ukraine or not? So we will always be facing very hard choices, and we will have to draw our match. It will be the red horse or fire horse. Yeah, it will be a decisive year, I think. And I hope that Ukrainians will be consolidated as they usually are when they face such challenges. So we will win maybe this year, next year, I mean, in 2026. I recollected several moments of 2022 when I told myself that the all-out war makes me think that it might last my entire life. I hope it won't be so, but this supports me in my everyday activity, because the reality is hard and we cannot actually suspend our lives, our living, our activities, and we have to treat life realistically. And I also recollected the words my boss once told me. It's Alexei Sobolev, who is the Minister of Economy now. He said, it's so exciting to have one goal for the entire life, just to make sure that Ukraine retains its agency and eventually wins. It's very good that we, in this young age, can get this goal driving us ahead for the interests of Ukraine and our exciting future. Yes, we are happy people indeed. I am guided by two principles that I will share with you. If you don't like something, change it. And the second one is be at the front line or work for the front line. And I hope that you will share these principles and you will find an opportunity to achieve certain impact. Back in 2022, we all felt we were citizens of this country and that we matter. We can make a difference, and we can make a difference for the front line, and we can make the difference in the rear to change what we don't like by being helpful and useful to the country. Now we have this opportunity to discuss all of that because our young men and women, and not very young men and women, are there at the front line fighting for us. Thank you. Thank you. It was an inspiring panel. So let us give them a round of applause. Maryna, Hrytsenko, Kateryna, Mykhalko, Artem, Sytnyk, Tymofii, Brik, Kseniia, Semenova. Thank you very much to all of you.